at specific times during the process, each of these companies has to get what's called an IHA, and it's an incidental harassment authorization. And we've seen the numbers of the ones on the East Coast where they're much farther along in the projects than there. And some of the numbers that they're quoting, the amount of animals that can be harassed. And keep in mind, harassment, there's level A and level B. Harassment can be anything from just disturbing them to killing them. And those are broken down into two different segments. And on the East Coast, some of the animals that they are citing that they can harass, potentially kill, is well over 30% of the population. It is really kind of scary. So these are the animals that they are going to be citing an IHA for. We have, you know, the fish, the albacore, which they migrate as well, and I didn't mention them. We have our lovely little sea otters. We have the various species of whales. We have our elephant seals, and elephant seal territory is right in the middle of that whole area that they're going to be surveying. And we also have the leatherback turtles. So it is just a wide array of animals that are going to be damaged and possibly destroyed by these loud noises. Next. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what happened on the East Coast. Many of us have heard about all of the whale strandings and all of the dense cetaceans on the East Coast as we believe is a result of the surveys. And the agencies are saying, well, correlation is not causation. But when you get a high enough correlation, you cannot ignore the fact that there is potential for, and if you are really looking at it from a scientific standpoint, there is causation. So what happened was, you can see that this is, when they started the surveys, it was 2016. Up until 2016, whale strandings and deaths were at a pretty low level. As soon as 2016 hit, in the areas that they were doing the surveys, that number increased. It increased depending on where you were, whether or not you were in Virginia or you were in Maine. That number increased 48 to 65%, and in exactly the same areas. It has been a very, very sad situation on the East Coast. Very high correlation, in my estimation, and many other scientists who's going, you know, what happened to the precautionary principle? If you see this kind of correlation, you stop what you're doing and you take a look at it. Next. Wonderland or wasteland, that's basically what we're looking at here, folks. Right now they've started the surveys. We are working really hard to slow them down and stop them, especially in the nearshore waters, which we will be working on. And this is potentially what can happen, is that they do these surveys for the years that they're going to be doing them. They damage the wildlife. And we are looking at the potential of them setting up these offshore wind, quote-unquote, farms. And this is what the ocean is going to look like. The destructive potential is huge, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Next. Okay, construction. So, you know, say they got through the survey part and, you know, and they're starting to do the construction. What I wanted you to get an idea with, this is a great picture because there are substations, there are turbines, there are cables, there's a whole variety of things. I'll go into that in a minute. But I wanted you to see how big these freaking things are. You got the big turbines, you have these really, really big substations, of which there will be a minimum of 5, probably somewhere between 5 and 8. Next. Okay, this is a really good schematic of what it's going to look like out there on the ocean. So, you know, I'm just going to talk about just one, like, you know, Equinor right now, they're kind of sort of heading things out. There will be mid-water cables strung between the turbines. And so what you have are the turbines, there's going to be mid-water cables. Each one of these turbines is anchored to the bottom. That's, you know, they're surveying to look for, you know, all of these details that they can find. These are basically, these turbines are emitting DC, these are live cables, you know, emitting EMFs, and they are going to the substations. The substation then converts it to DC, and the main electrical cables, of which there will be many, not just one per substation, will be going into the grid system on land. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So this is very, very simple, but it's not just them sitting out there. What you have is just this network. It's like a net of cables and anchors, and it's going to be a very vulnerable area for whales to be going through, entanglement. This is going to be a whole net of electrical and heat emissions in this entire area. Next. So the chains that are going from the floating turbine bases are really huge. You can see how big these puppies are. And anytime that you have anything on the surface, you know, that is chained, whether or not it's an anchor or it's on the mooring, you have what's called road, and that is usually 7 to 1. So in the case of these turbines that are sitting on the surface, they are 3,500 feet above the floor of the ocean. The road on these things, the length of these chains, is going to be really long. And each one will be about 3 miles long, but what it enables them to be able to do is to handle the movement on the surface. And so when that movement happens, they drag along the bottom, they scour the bottom, and they destroy the benthic habitat. Next. So with these projects, they're going to have extensive cable lines that right now they're going to start looking for, you know, where they want to put those cables. They have gotten one of their permits. We have absolutely no idea because they redacted everything and they didn't let the public see what was going on. They kind of illegally did it, but there wasn't a whole lot we could do about it. But those cable lines, so right here, this is a map of the California coastline. Cambria, Piedras Blancas, and pretty much due west from Piedras Blancas is the WEA, the wind energy area. And so what they're going to be doing is they're going to be looking to sending those cables into shore to be able to meet up, you know, with their grid connections, whether or not they are in Morro Bay, whether or not they are in Port San Luis, possibly Diablo Canyon. But in between where they want to come into shore with those cables, there are 3 different marine protected areas. It is illegal to do those kinds of activities and basically, you know, do pretty much anything. The fishermen can't fish in there, and they are protected. So just the fact that these guys want to cable into shore or into the near shore area where we already have set up to protect the wildlife, these marine protected areas, is pretty mind-blowing. That's going to be a part of their permitting process. They're going to have a heck of a time getting through because we do have very, very strong laws that are protecting those MPAs at this point in time. But if you can just imagine them doing, you know, they're dredging at least 6 feet down with these heavy-duty dredges that, you know, they hydraulically do, and it just destroys the bottom. And they're going to be running cables to shore and all the way down to the communities that those grid tie-ins are going to be in. Pretty nasty stuff, you guys. Next.